Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wiegmann. Tell you what, we have a special guest on this week. Of course, we are down in Mississippi. We're on Ross Barnett, that's also known as the Res, and we're here with Gene Bishop. And I guess I'm going to give your intro. So how's that? I'm going to say Gene is one of the only person that lives in Ridgeland, Mississippi that has won the BASSMaster Open.
Correct. As far as I know, no local has ever won a BASSMaster Open on the Ross Barnett Reservoir. So
So
we wanted to do that.
Look at that.
Was, of course, in 2015, and then they have the win and you're in deal. So I was able to qualify to fish the 2016 BASSMaster Classic at Grand Lake, where Edwin Evers won that year, where he caught the big 29-pound bag at the last day in Elk River. You probably was there.
Yeah, I was there. I was actually there. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So we've had people that have won the BASSMaster Classic on the show, and we've had Angler of the Year like Scott Canterbury and some of them. So it's always cool to have some more of you guys that have been in the big show and be fishing. So, we have to start. You have a YouTube channel. So we want to talk about that because we have our YouTube channel too of the show. So tell us a little bit about your show. Why'd you start doing it and what's it about? How's it?
Well, I mean, of course, I've always had a passion for fishing, and I thought, I've always had a dream to be Bill Dance when I was a kid. And of course, back in the day, you had to do a deal with TNN and all those big networks if you wanted to have a show. And of course YouTube came around, and I was hesitant at first, but then I saw some people like Richard Gene, the Fishing Machine, that had 200,000-300,000 subscribers, and he's just fishing out of a little aluminum boat. And that made me realize that you didn't have to have all the super duper great up to date equipment to build a following, because a lot of people, just relate to just a down home, so-called redneck that likes to go fishing, So that's why I started it, and it's going pretty well, I think.
Right. How long have you had that? Has it been a couple of years, or has it been a year?
It's been about a year and a half, somewhere in there. Yeah.
How many subscribers do you have?
Right now, I think I'm around 500 subscribers.
Okay. So that's the call out. That's the call out. So tell them, we'll just bust. Normally, wait till the end of the show, and then we tell people where to go to find out more. But tell them.
It's called Gene Bishop's Bass Fishing Adventures.
There you go. Well, that's pretty cool.
Straightforward.
How'd you come up with the name of the show?
I don't know, just brainstorming at the house, just thinking, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I just come up with it out of thin air. I mean,
the Fishing Guide podcast came from both of the hosts were fishing guides, and it's a podcast show. So it wasn't much of a stretch for us just to add podcast to fishing guides.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted something that was just pretty straightforward. You didn't, I hate watching stuff and they got these weird names and you don't even know what it goes to. Like, what does it even mean?
So tell us what's your favorite show of all the shows that you did? Which one? If the people were watching or they're listening and they want to watch what you think is your favorite show that of all times, on your channel, what show is it?
I got one called the 7-pound ditch pickle. I caught a 7-pounder on a War Eagle buzzbait up under a cypress tree way up the Pearl River on the Ross Barnett, and I mean, he came up and clobbered it. I mean, he was huge.
Wow.
The biggest fish I caught in 2021. So that was probably my favorite one.
And you got it live?
Like I got it live. Yeah, I just wear a chesty.
How cool is that?
Yeah, I mean, I just wear a chesty and do my own editing. Of course, you got to do your own editing in the beginning, because it costs a little bit of money. So I just self-taught editing,
Right.
So it ain't that hard.
Is there anything crazy happen? I mean, you got to think Ross Barnett, full of gators, birds, all kinds of stuff. Surely something's probably happened that's been a little unusual.
Well, I see a lot of alligators out there. I mean, one day I was throwing a frog across a big grass mat, and
right.
I seen a little alligator come across about 8 inches long, and then I started looking, and there was like 30 of them in like a wad.
Wow.
I guess she had just laid them or whatever, and then I hear some grumbling, and I look over there, and about 5 feet from the boat, there's a head about that long, and I was like, I better get out of here before I make her mad, defending her baby. So I think they get pretty territorial when they got the little bitty ones around them. They were kind of just sitting on her head, and I was like, I better ease out of here.
Ease out of that.
Yeah.
Swimming, huh? So you don't do a lot of swimming
I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, people do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, there's some 11, 12 footers out there,
That's some good ones. Well, let's talk about fishing, because are you originally from this area, or did you move to this area?
Well, I was born in Jackson.
Okay.
Jackson's right here. Grew up in South Jackson, and then moved up here about 5 minutes from the water about 15 years ago, so I can, get off work and be on the water in about 5 minutes right there at the Cock of the Walk or the Madison Landing.
Right. Huh.
So I love it.
Pretty close. And so, having lived here all the time, you kind of know the season. You kind of know where the fish are. So we're going to kind of tap your knowledge. So we're going to find out more about what these fish are doing here and how you would catch them if you came to the res to go fishing. How would you fish for them in the spring? What lures would you use, and kind of what area of the lake would you kind of focus on?
And
we're talking about bass fishing, but there's great crappie fishing here too, and catfishing too. So,
typically, what my rule of thumb out there is, in the spring, if the water is like 55 degrees or lower, I just like to go hit the riprap with a red rattle trap, because it seems like the fish are still on those 45-degree banks,
right?
And they're kind of just cruising, maturing their eggs. So if it's 55 or below, I'm just going to hit the riprap because they're not moving up in the flats yet. But once it hits about 58 degrees, especially if you're in a tournament, then you better go to the flats, like on the Rankin County bank or somewhere like that, because those big females are moving up, trying to warm up, and if you don't go with them, you're going to get spanked out there on the tournament. I mean, you got to move with them. So if it gets above 58 degrees in the spring, I like to go fish the flats and just find submerged, hydrilla or some, pad stems, and swim like a chatterbait or swim a 8-inch June bug lizard. That's what I won the Open on in 2015, is an 8-inch June bug lizard.
Oh, wow.
On 65-pound braid, quarter-ounce tungsten, about a 7-foot long, medium heavy action, and just throwing it in the big flat and just barely reeling it through the pad stems, and you just feel one little tick, and so that's what I do in the spring.
And then now we're coming into summer and things have warmed up. Where do you start? Do you stay down towards the dam, or what end do you kind of go to in the summer? And what lures are you fishing?
Right. Well, in the summer, I mean, we got like the spring, and then it goes into April and May. So I guess that's what, like late spring or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, the water will start to clear up a little bit in the upper river portions, as long as we don't have a big rain. And you can go up there in April and May up the river and throw buzz baits under cypress trees, and when they got the little shad spawn going.
Right.
And a lot of that is on my channel, because that's what really
Good.
my favorite way to do the springtime.
Oh yeah.
Late spring up the river on a buzz bait. Just throw it all day long, because I mean, I've been fishing long enough. I'm not really interested in catching the little ones. I want to get 4 or 5 big bites a day. Right. So now that's what I do in the April, May.
And then now we've moved into summer. Now what happens?
Well, the water starts to drop up under them trees and gets clear, so that stops working, and I move down to the lake, and and the fish will start moving out to those first little drops on the main lake. They'll go out to little drops where it's like 2 foot of water on top,
right?
And you might be sitting in like 5 foot with the boat, and typically there'll be some hard bottom type stuff with some stumps like shells or hard clay, and I just drag a Carolina rig and just whack them. Everybody else is enamored with the pads, and they're back there beating against each other, fighting and cursing each other, and I'm out there and out all to myself dragging shell beds, and I love it that time of year, and I've won a ton of money on a Carolina rig, and not a lot of people think Carolina rig when they come to the Ross Barnett. They're thinking frog or chatterbait, punching,
power fishing.
Yeah, I mean, so you'll be, most people think Carolina rig is for deep water. Right. And I sit in like a 5 foot and throw up to 1.5 foot with like a 3/4 ounce weight, so I can throw it a mile, so I'm not spooking them, and I'll drag it over them shells and stumps, and the fish never even know I'm there.
And then after summer, we're getting into fall, so water's starting to cool off.
Well, on a overcast day, when the water starts to cool off, the shad will start getting back on the rocks, and they'll start running them rocks, and you can throw, top water or some small spinner bait or something like that, and just parallel the rocks. But later in the fall, when it starts really cooling down and the pads start dying, you can go up the river and pick up a buzz bait and just throw it all day. I mean, October, the last 2 weeks of October and the first 2 weeks of November, as long as there's not some crazy weather, man, you can just go up that river and get in those pad stems and just throw a buzz bait and have a ball. Wow. They start, shad start moving, and they start feeding on shad for the winter, and right before it gets too cold to do really anything after that, because, it'll get muddy in the winter, and once it gets below 50 degrees water temp, you're not going to catch a bass out there.
I guess that takes us into winter, and so find something else to do.
Pick up a jig pole and go crappie fishing in the winter. That's what I do. Like December and January, I just go in the main harbor and stuff like that just to get out of the house, because I don't really hunt. Right. So
you're doing crappie fishing. So we'll break into crappie fishing. Are you using minnows, or are you using plastics or
I usually just tie my own jigs, the marabou jigs, usually just tie the orange marabou with that green Chanel, that green gold Chanel, and that works pretty good. In main harbor,
using a float or slip bobber, or just casting,
just
pitching.
Watching my graph and getting into old creek channels out there, and especially in main harbor, there's a creek that runs through the middle of it, and they'll be just packed in that creek channel, and it'll be freezing out there, and you just follow that creek channel and watch, just drop a jig down and just watch it on your graph, and they'll come up and eat it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
So what's the length limit on crappie on this lake?
I don't think there is one on Ross Barnett, and I believe it's 30 per person.
30 per person.
But I don't believe there is a length limit.
All right. Always make sure you check your local Game and Fish Commission and find out what that is, because we're not endorsing people taking short fish, only legal fish. But yeah, so that's pretty good. Then you're getting your fish for the summer at least.
Yeah, stock up fillets, for the rest of the year, in December and January,
Right.
And then, of course, February comes along, and then you got to get to break out the bass stuff again. So.
Right. Well, that sounds pretty good. That takes us to tackle time. we were talking about tackle, and Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures has a complete line of hard and soft baits, and of course they have some that will catch crappie. Even down here at Ross Barnett, we have soft plastics, and we have marabou jigs. If you don't want to make your own, Bunny Butts is one very popular one that has some flash and some marabou in it, so you can get them. Of course, all the hard baits like crankbaits, and they got poppers, and they got the Pico perch, and you can use them and catch the bass that are down here. So pretty exciting. It's good. If you want to check out more about PICO Lures, make sure you go to their website at picolures.com. If you want to find out more, and I know we talked about it, but let's say it again. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
Gene Bishop's Bass Fishing Adventures.
Okay. So that's where you need to go to check his out. He's got over a year and a half of good stuff on there, and you got bass fishing
if you
and
like
crappie.
Well, I don't have any crappie.
Oh, you don't? Yeah.
But if you like watching,
you need to get some on there.
I do.
People want to watch that.
I am. That's my plan.
Okay.
But if you like good topwater action and buzzbait fishing, that's the channel you need to go to, because I got it all. They're all coming up out of the water exploding. So.
Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. Anyway, it sounds good. Like I like to end the show, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.